To be honest with you guys, if 2 years ago I would have been asked to do a session on esports, I would have said no because I believe strongly that esports are evil. But something happened in our ministry that changed everything. 2 years ago, a game came out called Fortnite. I don't know if you guys know this games, but it's a battle royale game, which means everybody's for himself. You know, there's 100 people that are dropped into this creative world, and then you have to kill everybody. And if you survive, you're the winner. And so when this game came out, it was completely free on every platform. So PlayStation, Xbox, phone, iPad, computer, it was free. We saw a drop of 18% in all of the sports programs that we had. Children just started playing esports more than they wanted to go and play sports outside. In Houston, they had lots of excuses. It's too hot for us to go outside. Let's just play esports. Or, I can go at my own pace when I play esports. And at first, our response as a team was, no, we have to convert them. We have to tell them, no, don't play esports. Come back to soccer fields. You got to practice with us. You got to do this with us. But soon we realized that also doesn't work at all. They still wanted to play. Then I saw that parents started actually hiring coaches to train their kids on how they can be better at Fortnite. And I was like, this is a huge change that I've never expected to happen. And so esports is something that has become a new open world for us. And it's something that we see is growing, especially in time of pandemic. And so today I just want to share an intro. It's not a debate really what's good or not good. I'm not going to present lots of research and science on how it, what happens to your brain when you play esports. Because to be honest with you, as I was preparing, I read probably 30 scientific reports, and all of them are extremely contradictory. You'll find anything to support anybody's perspective. So this is just an overview. And so just wanted to start with little facts of gaming. So overview of the world of gaming. There are over 2.5 billion video gamers around the world. So 1/3 of the world plays video games, which is insane. The average gamer is 35-year-old, owns a house, and has children. For my longest period of life, I had a huge image of who is a professional or a leisure gamer in the world of esports, in the world of video games. And I thought it's a 18-year-old, 17-year-old boy who still lives with his parents, who never graduated high school, who eats chips the whole day. But as soon as I began learning more about esports, my perspective really shifted. I understood that the way I view this world is so different. And it's because the way that my perspective really does not serve me to go and enter this world. 70% of gamers are age 18 and older. More adult women play games than teenage boys. Which is also an insane fact for me, because I thought only boys and men play video games, but it's been growing so much that they believe in a few years it'll be a 50-50 split in the video game world. Gamers spend an average of 7 hours a week playing video games, not 30, not 40, not 80 hours like we like to think, but 7 hours, so 1 hour per day. And Germany actually has the highest weekly average in the world. Gaming industry is expected to reach $180 billion in revenue by 2021, which is 4 times bigger than Hollywood. So imagine the amount of movies that Hollywood makes. Imagine all the shows, all the parks, everything that comes out of Hollywood, and the gaming industry is going to blow it out of proportion. 85% of total video game industry revenue comes from free-to-play games. Smartphone is the gaming device of choice for 41% of gamers. So now, since the gaming is available everywhere at all times, people are using it when they're waiting in lines, at the grocery stores, at doctors' offices. So we see constantly, and actually smartphone is the #1 platform for female gender to play, for women to play video games. 70% of parents say video games have a positive influence on their child's life. This was a complete shock to me. I've heard my parents always train me that it only has a negative impact on your life. Even 1 hour a day, even 30 hours a day will destroy your life. But we see now a shift in generation. Those who have grown up playing video games, right, are now becoming parents. And so they're seeing that it can be a great impact on their child's life. And 67% of parents play video games with their child at least once a week. So now a video game is becoming more than just a thing that separates the child and the parent, but actually brings children together. And I actually remember growing up, when I was 14, playing FIFA, which is soccer or football on a platform with my father. And those were some of my favorite times to compete, to have fun, to enjoy each other. And 55% of gamers point out video games help them connect with their friends. So these are just some interesting facts. So pros and cons in gaming world. Students who play games online almost every day score 15% higher than the average student in math and 17% higher in their grades in science. Improving cognitive skills, I'll just go fast through these, provide a space for social connections, problem solving, and logic. There's been research that saw that it's been increasing, but there are also negative signs. We see that now 9% of people who play video games show signs of addiction. 4% play video games at least 50 hours a week. China has passed laws banning children from spending more than 90 minutes a day gaming. So now there's blocks on every device that if a device is turned on for more than 90 minutes, it will shut down completely. Video game abuse, so playing over, and there's different numbers. Some say over 12 hours, some say over 20 hours. Video game abuse leads to insomnia, increased anxiety, and depression. And gambling industry is growing rapidly right now within the esports world, within the gaming world, because now even on your phones, people are spending money to build farms, virtual castles, and things like that. But for today's presentation, I want to focus on esports. So if we think about the gaming world, it's divided into just the gaming and the esports. And the gaming world is kind of like play and sports, just what we see in our movement. And so what is esports exactly? Esports is a form of competitive video gaming and professional organized esports. Teams compete in popular video games. Players who compete at esports tournaments are professional who play video games full time. So what makes a video game an esport? We know there's thousands of video games that are being released every single year, but which ones are esports and why are they esports? So number one, there's a clear winner, just like in sports. There's a structure in the game, rules, nothing is based on luck. So games that are based on luck are not considered esports, and there's a reward at the end. Only top 0.01% of e-gamers, of video gamers, become professionals. That's the same rate as NBA. It's extremely hard to become a professional video gamer in this world. So what are some top esports genres? Number one is MOBA, which is multiplayer online battle arena. It's a strategy game, work towards common goal. It's a teams of 5 players and everybody controls one character on the team. So it's your strategic games where teams develop huge strategy, where they practice every single day as a team. It's extremely competitive. Then first-person shooter that's realistic or fantasy-based, relies heavily on aim mechanics, team or individual. So it's games, shooting games where there's blood, where people have to go and kill each other. Then we see real-time strategy. It's similar to the first genre, but it's not team-based, it's individual. We see fighting games are becoming more and more popular. I know in the 80s and 90s, they're extremely popular as well with Mortal Kombat and things like that. And then Battle Royale, which is, like I said, first or third person shooting, individual or team-based. Goals are to eliminate players and be the last one alive. And lastly, sports and racing based off live counterparts. So like FIFA, NFL, NBA, all of that is happening. It's interesting that now during the lockdown, in the United States specifically, we're seeing all of the professional teams in NBA, NHL, MLS, and every sport are all going esports. They're all are now playing esports. They select one player from their team. So for example, Houston Rockets select a player from their team, LA Lakers select and they all play. And it's all being translated on ESPN and Fox Sports. So we're seeing now sports are actually rising up as a top genre in esports. So here are just a breakdown of esports prize money and how fast it's escalating. So you'll see in 2010, the prize money for all the tournaments was only $3 million. In 2017, it's $121 million. And actually a player who won Fortnite tournament last year, a 16-year-old boy, won $3.6 million playing a game and winning a tournament. That is more than an NFL player wins when they win a Super Bowl. So Super Bowl, on average, a player gets about $150,000 as a winner. So that's what he gets paid. This boy got paid $3.6 million. We see the revenue growing is actually tremendous, and it's expecting to really grow at a fast pace in the next 4 years. Esports audience is growing fast as well. There's occasional viewers and esports enthusiasts, and it's growing and growing. And this really surprised me. So if you look at the United States, specifically in North America, League of Legends, which is a MOBA game, right? It's a strategic game that is played with a team. It's one video game. The League of Legends final was viewed more than MLB final, than NBA championship, than NHL. More people watch League of Legends in the United States in esports tournament than 3 of the top sports. Only NFL is still surpassing esports. And they're saying the next 3 years that even NFL will not compare to what esports is in this country. So what is the spiritual state of esport industry? Many believe that it might be one of the most atheistic segments in our society. The majority of the people that are in esport world are not believers. They're against Christianity. And part of it is because a lot of them are your millennials and Gen Z who are rejecting spiritual things. They're very hostile toward Christians. Most other non-Judeo-Christian religion beliefs are seen as interesting. So, for example, we read an article that talks about a man who's a believer, works in the esport industry, and he said, I can never say that I'm a Christian. As soon as I say I'm a Christian, I'm being equated to being dumb, to not understanding the world, to being a bigot, to being I hate everybody. But if a Muslim person comes out and says, I'm a Muslim person, or a Buddhist person says, I'm Buddhist, everybody thinks that's amazing. Everybody thinks you're so enlightened, you're so great. But for some reason, Christianity is being viewed as the enemy of the people in this esport world. There are some hidden Christians who are afraid to go and reaching out. So they're hidden Christians in the esports world who are not doing anything, who just want to stay hidden. But we're seeing now that the actual professional esport players are beginning to rise up, beginning to post videos online about their faith, beginning to start podcasts where they share about their faith. So this is a great beginning. There are also hidden gamers who are Christians, so they don't reach out to the gaming community for Jesus. There are a lot of Christians who feel very judged that if they tell people that I play video games, that their church will not understand, or their youth group will not understand and make fun of them. So rather, they play in their own dark room at their own free time, and they don't want to come out and really use their spiritual life to reach to the people. Okay, so let's talk about some models. Okay, and last one, spiritual state. Gamers are seeking community, but constantly feel judged by Christians and the church. They feel there's no space for them. Many feel that the command to love your neighbor excludes them. And that's a quote from one of the professional e-gamers when he was interviewed about Christianity. He said, I've tried it, but I feel like the command to love me excluded me in the church. That I didn't, when I came and I shared that I'm a professional esports player, people were trying to change me and tell me there's a better way to live your life. Don't spend your time playing video games. This is not what God wants for you. And he left. And it kind of reminded me of, back in the 80s and maybe 70s, where in our culture, when professional athletes would become Christians, the church would tell them, now leave your idol of sport and become a full Christian. And so we're seeing this happening. And Eddie was actually the one saying that the esport industry really looks like NFL in the 60s when Christianity was rejected. But seeds were planted through chaplaincy and things like that. And we're seeing more and more NFL players now who are believers and are open about it. So models of ministry, there are unfortunately not so many models of ministry in the esports world. If you type in models of ministry or ministry to video gamers and things like that, there'll probably be 5 websites or 5 things that you'll see that will be repeated over and over again. So it's a very brand new thing for a lot of people right now stepping into this. But we see now leagues and tournaments are happening. So people are now able to connect online. They don't have to meet in person, and they can play FIFA, or they can play NBA, or they can play other games online, competing against each other and connecting through a headset and actually speaking and talking. And actually, we in Houston are trying to do a video esport community cup this summer, because our community cup had to be canceled. So we're moving into an esport world where we can still talk to each other, where we can still connect, and where we can still proclaim the gospel. We see Christian video games that are popping up, but none of them have been really successful. A lot of it is because creating a video game is extremely expensive, and for it to be really good, you have to market it. And for right now, we as a Christian world haven't fully embraced creating and investing into this a huge chunk of money. But there are Christian video games that focus on David's life, or that focus even on Jesus's life and things like that. We see school and college clubs being started. So a lot of high schools right now want an esports club in their high school. Not just a soccer program or a football program, but an esports club. And that allows you to come. Really, there's so many foundations now in the United States that even will buy laptops for everybody, computers, PlayStations, whatever you need. And you come and you set up an esports club, and you can play, you can talk about life with them, you can share the gospel with them. And we're seeing more and more things like that happening. There are church events that are now happening in the esports world. Last year, this Easter, a church in the United States did an Easter egg hunt in Minecraft. Minecraft is a game which is extremely popular, where you build a world and things like that. And so they literally created this beautiful world and invited all their youth and all their children to go Easter egg hunting in this world. And they were able to talk and connect with each other, which is very cool. And there are people visiting game trade shows and conferences, trying to connect with that world. There's also a platform which is called Twitch. Twitch is a streaming platform, which means that a person plays video games online, and others come and watch and play video games. There are literally thousands of people that are watching these streamers play video games. And as they play, people can talk in the chat, and the streamer, the video gamer, can actually talk to them in person through the chat or in audio. And so there's a God Squad church that was started by actually a pastor a few years ago. He was a pastor at a regular church, and he just felt like God is calling him to go and reach the esports world. And so he began streaming, and as he was streaming and playing video games, he just wanted to share the gospel with people. And his audience grew and grew, and more people came and watched him. In the last 3 years, they were able to share the gospel with 350,000 people through Twitch. They also gather every Saturday as a church on Twitch, with 4,500 people attending their Twitch church. Every year, at least 3 times a year, they come together, and from different parts of the world, and they do baptisms and things like that. And they use different platforms to host small groups, discipleship stuff, and things like that. So now it's an interesting model of just seeing an online church for esport players, for video gamers. You can check them out online. Now let's talk about what we can offer as a movement to them. Some of the things that we noticed is that esport coaches who are coaching professional teams are extremely young. They're probably ages 24 to 28 years old. And many of them just came out of being professional players. So very young. And the way that esport teams operate is extremely interesting, because most of the professional players are 16 to 24. They all move into the same house. So a professional team would live in one huge mansion with their coach, with their team staff, and things like that. And so esport coaches don't really know how to help their teams players grow. They don't understand how to help their players develop themselves, because these are young players. They're also seeing a lot of cross-cultural differences. A lot of teams right now is a mix of North America, Japan, China, Southeast Asia, India, coming all together, living in one house, and they're all hating each other because they don't know how to, love each other, and how to understand differences, and how to find commonality. So we do have lots of great resources to serve these coaches. And, Vala, even on the call, has mentioned that she would love to help out the coaches. And develop coaches on how they can really mentor their players to keep them accountable. We also can begin reaching out to professional gamers. This means we can start visiting tournaments and events that are happening everywhere in the world. We can visit game shows like during the big major sporting events and try to begin share the gospel, trying to begin connecting with professional gamers. Because to be honest with you, in a gaming world, professional gamers have a huge influence. I mean, they'll pop up on stream and there'll be 10,000 people right away just sitting there and watching them for hours. Sometimes it's millions of people watch. They have a huge influence. If they stop playing a game, all of their followers will stop playing a game. And it's so reaching to the professional gamers is huge for us as the movement. And then we need to have more streamers on platforms like Twitch, Mixer, and YouTube. My brother just started using Twitch to stream and trying to connect with some of our players as well as people around the world. And he now has been able to share the gospel with people from Netherlands, which is crazy. That from Houston, he's connecting people from Europe. And the man from Europe with whom he connected is now brought 6 more people into their gospel discussions of his friends. So if we have more and more people using these platforms and reaching out to people, I think we can begin to see a huge shift. And lastly, we can be big fish in a small pond. I know that some of our countries, there's no esports being developed yet, or it's not as big, or there's no connection. Maybe there's not enough technology for it to do that. How can we be in those countries leading the way in redeeming that world? So not that the video game industry will come and set it up and maybe break our culture, but how can we be the first people to bring healthy gaming culture into our countries instead of waiting for a big corporation who has lots of money and influence to do it? So this is just a small update, small info. It's an interesting world, and I know that God is going to begin to rise up more and more people to go after them and to reach them, so that this segment will be known not as a segment of people who don't know Jesus, who are depressed, who hide behind screens, but they will be known as people of God, as children of the living God, who are going and making disciples. Thank you, guys.